Hello, explorers of all ages, and welcome to Reach the World's Explorer program. For more than 25 years, Reach the World has sparked student curiosity, bringing real-world adventure, fresh perspectives, and global career paths into K-12 classrooms through virtual exchange. My name is Tim, and today we will begin one of our most thrilling adventures to date with veterinary surgeon Dr. Johan Marais and his team at Saving the Survivors in South Africa. I cannot wait to introduce you to Dr. Marais, our guide on this learning journey, so you can hear directly from him what it takes to give an elephant an x-ray, free a lion from a wire fence, or reconstruct the face of a rhinoceros that has been the victim of poaching. Special thanks to the Infinite Safari Foundation for making this program cost-free for all participating classrooms. We are glad that you are here. And the good news is we don't have to wait long today to meet Dr. Marais. He is here live today, joining us from South Africa. We can dive right in. I want to give a very warm welcome to emergency wildlife veterinarian and founder of Saving the Survivors, Dr. Johan Marais. Hi, Dr. Marais.
Hello, Tim, and hello to all the explorers as well. It's an honor to join you guys.
It is so cool to be talking to you live from South Africa today. We are just getting to know you. We're in the beginning of a virtual exchange journey together. So today we're just going to sort of ask you some questions about you so we can understand who you are and where you live and what your life is like and what you do, so that we can then dive deeper into some more topics about emergency veterinary medicine and surgery and what that actually means. So I'm going to get started right away. All of your audience today are kids. What was your childhood like? Where did you grow up? And when did you first become interested in animals?
Yeah, Tim. So I was actually born in South Africa, but shortly thereafter, my parents moved to Namibia, where my father was a game ranger in Etosha. And I can clearly remember, having experiences with wildlife there. I remember, and now I'm talking primary school, that I was riding a orphan rhino that was about 2-3 years old. We were feeding, lion cubs that the mother died. I can't remember from what. And I think all of that, and just seeing my father interacting and working in this really special environment with the wildlife, I think installed and just confirmed this love I have, for wildlife and for animals. And I clearly remember, I think it was about a year after that he asked me, what do I want to be one day? And I said to him, well, I want to be a game ranger like you. And he said to me, that's a really noble cause, and it's a terrific job, but there's not a lot of funds in that. It doesn't pay that well, which is fine actually. But he said to me, so because things are, even in those days, were getting really expensive really quickly. And he said to me, is there not something else but in that kind of a sphere that you want to be? And I said, well, the very next thing would be a veterinarian. So eventually I became a veterinarian, and I qualified in 1991. Sorry. And at that stage, there was not a lot of wildlife jobs around, because our whole wildlife industry was not really developed that well. So I decided from there on to become a horse vet. So I joined private practice for about 5 years, and because I'm really passionate about lecturing and teaching, I then joined our faculty, or our veterinary school. But that real life for wildlife was still lingering on in my mind, and my time really came after 2008, when the rhino poaching issue started in South Africa. And shortly thereafter, which we can talk about later, is I got called out, for the first rhino that was injured and that had gunshot wounds. And then slowly but surely, I got involved in this whole wildlife sphere, and the traumatic injuries and all different kinds of animals like rhino and elephant and even antelope. And from there it only snowballed until in 2012 when I started saving the survivors.
What an amazing path. I wonder if you can remember from your childhood the first time you recall humans having just like a really positive impact, either through timely medical care or just, protection maybe on the part of your father as a ranger, that humans can have a very positive impact on the animals around them and the animals that they love. Do you remember was there a time where that all really clicked for you?
Absolutely. There was a really good vet which my father worked under, called Dr. Jaime Ebedes, which at that stage he was quite a legend in that area. And I clearly remember when a black rhino got injured, and I often used to drive with my father in the vehicle, and we went to this rhino, and he darted it and he treated it. I think it was the front leg that was severely injured from a fight with another bull. And I think that made quite a big impact on me, to see how he darted the animal. There was a little bit of blood, and how he cleaned it and treated the animal. And then by some miracle, this rhino that was lying there, when he gave the antidote, it just got up within 2 minutes and trotted off. And I thought, for me being a small child at that stage, it was just amazing to see how this guy, just this immensely large animal, how he darted it and treated it, and then he suddenly just trotted off. And I think that made quite an impact on me.
I think it would make an impact on a lot of people. Just it's a pretty amazing story. You are growing up in South Africa and Namibia. You have a very different sort of backyard than I think a lot of the students who are joining and learning from you on this journey. Can you describe, we're all, many of us are animal lovers, and I myself have cats. Some people have dogs. What's the sort of wildlife walking through your backyard, just as a point of reference?
So, when I worked at the faculty, I stayed in a city, and I was just about 10 kilometers from from the veterinary school, because often we had to go in at night and operate horses and that kind of thing. But we'll show you a little bit. Currently where I spend most of my time is, I've got a house in right here in the bush, and you can see it's partly fenced, and the fence is not to prevent animals from coming in, but I've got the 3 Jack Russells here, which must stay inside here, because there's all kinds of wildlife in the back there. So there's often antelope that walks past here, kudu, impala, nyala, and then every now and then I also have white rhino that will come past here. And I don't really want my dogs to interact with them, or to get injured by them. It is actually amazing. It's got pros and cons. So, but in the long run, it is really amazing to be able, and a privilege to to live in the bush. You do have to remember that there's much less basic amenities here. You can't just climb in your car and quickly drive to Walmart or to one of those places. The closest town here is 50 kilometers away. I'm not sure how much that is in miles.
Yeah.
So that'll take me at least about 40 minutes to get to the nearest town to buy something. So you have to plan your trips really well. But in the morning or in the evenings, this morning again, when I woke up, it's deadly quiet. You only hear the birds. I heard some jackals screaming. And that just it's amazing to be able to live in such a place, and that close to nature. I'm sure if your students can do that for a couple of days, they will love that as well. And it just takes you out of the city, out of the hustle and bustle, and the rat race, and it just settles you down so that you can connect again with nature and even with your inner self. And just think about things and think about what we as humans are doing to the planet and how we can all contribute to actually create less pollution, and less toxic materials into the rivers and all of that, so that this amazing wildlife that we have in Africa, but also in other parts of the world, like in your part, the bears, the wolves, so that they can continue for generations to come.
All right, very good. I'm going to ask you what is it seems like a very simple question, but maybe very difficult for you. Do you have a favorite animal?
Oh, definitely. So uh, uh, it's a bit of a tricky one, because for us, probably guys, from when I can remember, the elephant was by far my favorite animal, by far. And I started working on rhino probably in 2010, I think, for the first time. And that number just increased. So I've worked on a lot of rhino for the last 10, 15 years. And it's almost a toss-up now between elephant and rhino. I think elephant still wins by a short head, but I have to tell you, to be able to work on rhino, whether they're white or black, is a great privilege. It's really wonderful. It's a very, very special animal. And it might just topple the elephant in one of these days.
Okay, very close for the lead spot. What is
Yep.
what is so special about those two animals? Obviously, they're enormous. They're beautiful animals. They're very interesting to look at. What do you love about them? What is it that you think keeps you go above and beyond most people? You don't just appreciate them at a zoo or as they're walking by your fence. In your case, you go above and beyond. You founded a whole organization to help these animals survive and thrive. What is it that you love so much about them?
I think, Tim, for elephants, I think the most amazing thing about an elephant is its intelligence. I give these yearly courses to lay people, where we have like a 4-day safari, and we just talk about elephants that entire time. And what always, I think, flabbergasts most people is the intense emotional intelligence and just normal intelligence as well that elephants have. I think we underestimate constantly the intelligence of an elephant. If I have to tell you the amazing things that they can remember, there's an old saying that says elephants never forget. And when I was a child, I thought, that's something that old people say, and it's not really true. But I promise you, an elephant never forgets. To give you an example quickly. So most mammals are born with a brain capacity, right, of about 90%. So your brain, or most mammals' brain, from birth to the adult, only grows by 10%. Humans and elephants are the only species which are born like between 25 and 33%, which gives us the ability to learn things as we get along, and to remember things, and to really experience things and remember that. So we're the only two species on land that really has that. And that's for a specific reason, that capability makes elephants extremely intelligent. They remember really well. um, uh, not only, for instance, when they're in the bush, but also they remember smells really well. They remember people, specific people they can remember really well.
Mm.
And it also, you know, relates back to when there's times of drought. They can remember, for instance, well, 6 years ago, there was in that area, there was quite a lot of water. So I'm going to take my family and I'm going to walk to that area, you know, to get water, for instance. So
Amazing.
I think that makes me really fond that, you know, it's just, it's such a special animal because of that intense intelligence it has. And
Mm.
then rhino, you know, rhino is just, that's a species on its own, you know. When we started doing some research on rhino now, everyone always said, well, a rhino is basically a large horse. Because if you look at its GIT, the sinuses in its head, the kind of antibiotics you have to give to it, they all went, well, it's kind of a big horse and you have to treat it like a big horse. But we clearly found out over the last 8 to 10 years that it's not a big horse. It is really a very specially adapted animal where its sinuses, its GIT, its gastrointestinal system, its bony structure is unlike any other animal.
Mm.
Um, you know, the fact that it has got a horn, which is only made of keratin, which is the same as your hair. But again, that's different because most horns of animals have a bony core inside, while the rhino doesn't have a bony core inside.
Okay.
So again, it's such an animal that were put together so specially in such a lot of instances, and I think that has made it really special to me. And then, of course, you know, there's such a big difference between white and black rhino, which we can, you know, at some stage talk about. White rhino, is much larger. It's very much docile. It's not that aggressive, and it grazes. That's
Mhm.
why it has the wide mouth. And then you go to a black rhino, which is exceedingly aggressive. It's a much smaller rhino, and it has a pointed tip because it browses.
Mm.
Um, However, if you put the least aggressive white rhino in an enclosure like a small camp, it doesn't really calm down. You can keep it for 3 months in a small camp; it will still be fairly aggressive, right?
Mhm.
And then you take a black rhino, which is a much more aggressive animal, and you put that in a small camp. It will feed out of your hand within 3 days.
Wow.
And that we do not understand until you open the gate again. Then that aggressiveness is immediately back. So
Wow.
yeah, so you know, these are really really special animals.
For someone who feels so connected to the animals and cares about them so much, is it difficult for you to have on a daily basis interactions with animals that either from humans or other animals or natural causes are injured or are not doing well or in bad shape? Is that a difficult part of your work for you?
Yeah, I have to say yes and no. You know, I mean, if you become a veterinarian, Tim, you you have to expect, you know, to deal with injury, you know, to deal with trauma, and I suppose on the couple of occasions you have to put down animals, which is never nice. Um, but you know, there's a but there. I think if and you know, we won't show you have a picture on the screen now of a rhino that we treated recently, where the horn was removed by poachers. um, uh, you know, there are some injuries which are much more severe than other ones, And I think those ones really hit home. I don't think it's only me. I've spoken to several wildlife veterinarians that had to deal with these kind of injuries and treat them. And I think we all feel the same in that it really affects you negatively. I think to deal with those kind of injuries is much harder than to deal with a horse that it's cut itself, or a dog that's been in a dog fight, or stuff like that. These are all human-made injuries, and some of them are immensely traumatic for the rhino.
Mhm.
And you have to remember that's not where it stops, right? So if a white rhino cow was shot and a horn was removed, 9 out of 10 times she would have had a baby or young calf with her. And
Mm.
often, because she's not able to defend the small calf, that calf also gets attacked on day one or day two or day three, either by hyenas or even by lion. And then you get there, and it's not only the mother you have to treat, but the baby as well. And often the baby get killed by lion or by hyena. So you basically have then two rhino that are dead. Or even worse, you get to the rhino mum, and she's been killed by poachers, and you do a post-mortem, and she's heavily pregnant. So again, you didn't lose one rhino, but you lost two rhino. And in some instances, because the calf at foot was maybe, let's say, a couple of months old, 2 years old or so on, and that was taken by lions. So you've lost three rhino just by the hand of one human that, for some other reason, wants the horn and he wants to go sell it on the black market,
Right.
which is really sad. And I think that affects all of us in a really bad way.
Yeah, I'd say you have taken, your work and your passion in this field, and you founded an organization called Saving the Survivors. That's what we're here to learn about, your work in this field. Can you talk to us a little bit about why you started Saving the Survivors, and really what is as a emergency veterinarian, what does a typical week look like for you as the Saving the Survivor surgeon? When you get a call, what could your week look like?
Yeah, so our poaching problem really started in 2008. And I think we lost, 30 or 40 animals in that year. And then it quickly jumped up exponentially to, after 3 or 4 years, I think we were losing 800 animals a year, up to 1,000. And in 2020, I think 2010, we were called the first time to treat some of these survivors where they've either darted the animal or they have shot the animal, but it's still alive, and they've hacked off the horn. And they have these really bad traumatic injuries over the face, or they've got fractures in their legs because of gunshot wounds. And nobody was basically treating these things, Tim, these animals. And I think one of the biggest problems were that we didn't know how to. This has never happened before. Never in the history of mankind did we have to treat these kind of injuries, because it never really happened, not on such a large scale. So in 2011, I decided that we need to do something about this, that we need to put some effort to see how we can help these animals. So we started Saving the Survivors in 2012, and with the sole aim of treating these rhino, whether white or black rhino survivors, either from gunshot wounds, from traumatic injuries, or then from these horrific facial injuries. And I quickly realized that there were nothing in the literature, so there were no books or articles which we could go to and see how does the anatomy look up here, or if we want to do surgery on a limb, maybe remove a bullet, or we want to cast a rhino's leg. How do you exactly do that? Nothing of that has ever been done. So we had to do all of these things right from the start. We had to find out what works, what doesn't work, how do you do it. So we obviously had quite a lot of failures as well. But I think over the last 5 to 8 years, um, we really found out, and we know now how to cast a rhino's leg, how to treat these severe facial injuries, what kind of antibiotics to use, what kind of anti-inflammatories or painkillers to use. So I think we've made a lot of strides over the last 8 to 10 years. And then we can share these info, with other vets, and we often do, with vets in the US, with zoos, or in Europe, and that enables them again to help those animals there. A typical week would, for instance, be, and I think before I go to that, what I also have to tell you is, being a veterinarian, you're always reactive. Okay, so the injury happens, and then you get called, right? So whether that is wildlife or dogs or cats or horses, you always react to an injury. Okay, and we just decided about 5, 6 years ago that we want to be proactive as well. We want to put measures in place to help animals not get poached. Uh, so we've branched out in that we will help the private rhino owner dehorn rhino, where we take off the horn, and you can't take off the entire horn. You have to store to stop about that far above where the horn ends, otherwise you're going to living tissue. But that horn grows again, and it's not sore for the animal. It's almost like cutting your fingernails. But that just discouraged the poacher of shooting those specific animals, because it hasn't got a full horn. We will also do collaring, where we put a kind of a collar around their feet that tracks them. And then if anything abnormal happens to that rhino, we will know immediately. Within 3 to 5 minutes, I have an app on my phone, and it will send a signal to my phone to say, there's something wrong with this rhino. You must have actually go and have a look what's happening. So a typical week is, I will come to the bush. We will, for instance, do, just this past Saturday, we call it 5 rhino. We started about 7 o'clock in the morning, and we ended, I think it was about 12:30, we ended. If there's any injury in the area, either on any endangered animal, so on a rhino, an elephant, a wild dog, a lion, we will attend to that. If there's any elephant collaring, we would do that in that same week, for instance. And we collar elephants to know exactly where they walk, because they travel such vast distances, 300-400 kilometers. We like to collar certain individuals to see exactly which area they use to feed, which areas they like to actually drink water, which other herds they would join or not. So it can be in a week, it can get quite busy.
Mm-hmm.
Most of our work is done in winter, because we now going into summer, and already, for instance, a day like today, we at 30 degrees Celsius, which is getting slightly too hot to actually collar animals, or to work with any kind of animal. Your risk of losing an animal is much, much higher when it is 30 degrees or higher. All right, which we're now going into that season here, where I sit, in a month's time, it can easily get 45 degrees Celsius. So our busiest period is probably from, let's say, the end of March, the beginning of April to about August. That's when we do most of our work, because that's our winter time and it's nice and cool, and we can actually work comfortably with most of our animals.
All right, that was a great description, and I have so many more questions that I'm going to save for later in our virtual exchange together. Like, how do you put a cast on a rhinoceros? How do you give an elephant an X-ray? How do you, save all of these things that are part of your everyday life that are very interesting, and I'm sure will be interesting to learn more about. But my one final question before we let you go, I know you're actually off in the coming days to give an elephant an X-ray, which
Yep.
very excited to hear more about down the road. Is you had mentioned that elephants remember well, and have you ever had an animal that you've worked with remember you as a friend or somebody who helped them, and show that or indicate that in any way after sort of their trauma was over?
Yeah, so we, and with our second live stream, I'm going to try and show you this animal. It's a white rhino called Seha, Seha. He walks as the crow flies from me, about 1 kilometer from me. It's an animal that was poached. He was shot through the chest in 2016. We saved him. He was horribly attacked, but we saved him, and he's doing really well. He's already sired a calf. So I've done probably over 30 operations on him. And he clearly remembers me. When I go to him, he's still a wild animal, so we have to keep that in mind, and I clearly keep that in mind. But often when I go to him, I will get out of my vehicle, and he actually comes walking to me at a brisk pace, and I often have to say to him, "Oh, hey, stop! You can't come closer." But I think I have a really special connection with him, and I'm really excited to actually show him, to your guys in our next talk.
Excellent. I think I can speak for everyone to say we would love to meet Seha too. So I hope we get the chance to do that. Thank you for sharing that story. And I know you have to get on with your day. I really appreciate you joining us today and giving us an introduction to yourself and your work and the things that we're going to learn together over the coming weeks. This has been a great introduction, again, both to you and the field of emergency wildlife veterinary, the career. Thank you so much. Thanks again to the Infinite Safari Foundation for their support of this program. Students and educators, there's so much more that we're going to learn from Dr. Marais as we continue with him over the next few weeks. So I'm so glad you're here. He's going to be sharing some short articles and photos from his field work on his Reach the World Journey homepage over the weeks to come. I added that link in the chat. And we're going to travel virtually with him to a few different places, as Dr. Marais mentioned, and see him in action and meet, hopefully, some of the patients that he works on. So we are really just getting started. Educators, it is free to sign up. You can get a class flag if you sign up soon, and join us from the beginning as we embark on another great adventure together with Dr. Marais. So until next time, thank you so much, Dr. Marais. Students, keep exploring. Thank you all for going on this Reach the World journey with us, and we will let Dr. Marais say goodbye. And it's just me today, so I will say goodbye with a big wave. Thank you so much.
Thank
we'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye.